red and the suit of hearts, and Iki, represented by the color blue and the suit of spades. Anyway, now the prominence and contrast of the colors red and blue generally in a lot of harem or love triangles should kind of be a tip-off that these two characters in a less lazy story would be the most prominent love interest, or perhaps the only two, even if there's another cadre of desirable men off-screen. These would be the usual pillars in a love triangle. So, what makes them such common rival material? Well, let's break it down and apply it to these crappily written stereotypes in this particular show I'm being forced to watch. The red character, in this case Shin, is usually the more boyish of the two, but no less masculine because he's also more animalistic. He's wild, unpredictable, emotional, irrational, but has a good, open heart and stands up for his convictions. Although both guys in a love triangle typically need to be saved from something, the red-hot character usually needs more overt, circumstantial rescuing. He needs more taken care of, and in turn will take care of the heroine in a more direct or carnal way. See your Jacob from Twilight, or for an example from something that doesn't blow, Kyo from Fruits Basket. The blue character, Iki here, is the more mature, controlled, and refined option, but not necessarily seen as more manly because that also comes with a delicacy, a divine, sensitive royalty that could be seen as feminine, but, you know, feminine in a way the ladies like. He's caring, perceptive, logical, and capable, but can also be seen as duplicitous or distant to appear cool and in control without getting hurt. He's easier to obtain than the wild red, but harder to keep. So the sort of rescue he requires is a deep emotional one. If you can soothe his wounded soul, he'll be more independent than his red counterpart and will take care of the heroine in a more fiscal, worldly regard, or in every way possible, really, as a true knight in shining armor. See your Edward from Twilight, or for an example from something that doesn't blow, Yuki from Fruits Basket. So, those are the hooks. The red versus blue, boy versus man, pauper versus prince seesaw between them. Well, it might explain why most tween or teen romance is redder, like Twilight, and the quote-unquote adult stuff is slightly bluer, like 50 Shades of Grey, and why a distinction even needs to be drawn as young girls become women, I suppose. Now, I'm not sure what it says about ladies' fantasies on a global level that in anime, Americans tend to favor the red characters, where Japanese fans favor blue. Huh. In Amnesia, this manifests in some really stupid and creepy ways, unfortunately. The short version is that Shin is uncomfortably forceful about the protagonist not remembering him or the fact that they're dating, apparently. To the extent he seems to sort of want to fuckstart her memory, like maybe his dick will solve her amnesia problems. While Iki is, Iki, I'll call him Iki if I damn well please, is moony and piney over a conflict that, once you hear it, any man or person, really, with any real problems, once they hear what he's upset about, would want to slap him in the face. And either way, both of their conflicts could easily be resolved with just a little bit of patience and a little bit of honesty, respectively. But I guess that goes for the heroine as well, because she refuses to make decisions for herself and just tell the guys off, or, you know, at least just tell them that she has amnesia. In both cases, she hides it but refuses to act in any affirmative way. It's just, it's miserable. It's terrible. And that aside, though, this train wreck has officially become a little too fascinating to just dismiss with a red. So because I have to see how it ends, despite the terrible, terrible pain, I am going to stop lying to myself and go ahead and give this a yellow. We'll talk more about the third stringers and reverse harems next time, which are going to be coming up soon. But for now, moving on. Well, if you can believe it, the girls of Muse in Love Live School Idol Project still don't have all 9 members together. Although it's pretty clear who those members are going to be, as a couple remaining seniors are just being more stubborn when it comes to putting faith in the idol group. Every episode so far has been an uphill climb for the aspiring idols, and a lot of fun to watch. They're not just trying to save the school at this point, they're slowly building an audience in an attempt to compete with other idol groups nationally, in a super concert of 20 groups called The Love Live. Hence our title. But that's a lot to aspire to considering they've barely secured a practice space, and the school is closer to being closed forever than it was even at the beginning of the show. I'm probably making this sound a lot more tense than it actually is. In truth, Love Live is really a very adorable, relaxing show, and the thing about it that grabs me the most, I think, is just how hard all the characters have to work to get anything to go their way, at all. and how they all sort of need each other. There are sort of defined roles like costume designer, choreographer, lyricist. They do have those distinctions-ish, but the lines blur and intermingle in neat little ways that makes the girls seem more human and relatable, and they don't really feel like candy-coated stereotypes despite the character designs. There's a lot of good, albeit simple character writing that sort of brings it all home, makes you feel very deeply for them. And between all the cutesy pop songs and silly humor, it is a surprisingly touching experience. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes, enjoying it a lot. It's time for Seasons Past once again, although we won't be flying back nearly as many seasons this time. Let's take a tinier trip through time, just 5 years back, when the otaku market wasn't really so different from where it is today, the winter of 2008. I've mentioned before that while winter can be the drabbest anime season of the year, it also tends to lend us one gentle, writerly gem, often winter-themed, among the more zany, disposable offerings of the chilly months. A couple episodes ago, in 2003, that was Wolf's Rain, and 5 years later, in 2008, you couldn't be blamed for thinking Japan closely associates that fuzzy predator with the snowy season, as another wolf-themed series aired to popularity and acclaim with otaku on both shores. And to this day in 2013, I still don't really understand why. Yes, I did say I was done comparing this year's Malyu to Spice and Wolf, the focus of this episode's Season Past, but I should probably give Spice and Wolf its due all by itself before we stop talking about it altogether. The series follows the life of the solitary merchant, Kraft Lawrence, who peddles goods from town to town in a fictional, medieval-esque kingdom, dreaming of settling down to open up his own shop and live a peaceful life once he's made enough money. His dreams are cut short, however, when he stops for the night in a small village's wheat field and picks up a hitchhiking deity, an ancient pagan wolf goddess named Holo, whose sovereignty has been forgotten by the now church-controlled countryside, and until Lawrence showed up, she was spirit-bound to the land's wheat crop. After some sharp-tongued banter, he agrees to free Holo from her contract and bear her north to the mountains, where, she hopes, the rest of her people are still living and waiting for her. Now, hearing a plot summary like that, you may be confused as to why I said I don't get how this show got popular. And it did get pretty popular. Merchandise sold crazy well in Japan, amongst otaku anyway, and you still see a lot of it being promoted at cons in the US now. It got a second season that also sold well despite changing studios and art styles. The fans followed along for Holo and Lawrence's story, and the novels the show was based on are some of the few to be officially translated and released stateside, with non-anime-ish covers at first too, although they were reissued with more otaku-friendly art as well, indicating Yen Press, the publisher, thought the story was accessible enough to market as young adult fiction rather than manga. And certainly the easy hooks are there for otaku. Cute, spunky wolf girl has adventures with chill, relatable dude in a fantasy setting. What's so niche about that, right? Well, Lawrence is still a traveling merchant, and their journey to the north is taken via slow-moving horse and cart. Basically, the entire show is about economics. Well, it's kind of about people talking about economics. And I don't mean simply supply and demand, inflation and equilibrium. I mean, things like this.
When I purchased salt from a trading company in Yorens, I didn't initially pay for it there. I had actually sold some wheat in a different town to a branch of the same company where I got the salt. The transaction was that instead of receiving a payment for the wheat, I didn't have to pay for the salt. In other words, 2 separate sales transactions were completed without exchanging any money.
Nice. Very unusual.
It's a system we like to call exchange transactions, which was invented by merchants who were dealing with people in several different locations.
I own a vinery in town not far from here called Perencia. I'd never considered paying my business transactions in this way.
Episode after episode, just that, right there. So, how in the hell did this get popular? And that aside, is it even any good? Well, okay, I'll get the second thing out of the way first. Spice and Wolf is fucking great. It's unique and odd and weirdly subtle. I keep somehow being drawn back to revisiting it, and it's grown on me more every time I've seen it. There is some real strength in that material. And I think once that's drawn out, it'll become clearer why this show about an everyman and a wolf girl discussing silver purity and the price of furs has such an adoring fan base. Aside from, well, the obvious reason. Couldn't think of anything else to put in the playing cards, guys? Maybe? No. Still, sexualizing one character in the marketing for a show, not even in the show itself, which is rather cheesecake-free and straightforward, is a drop in the bucket in the modern, over-sexturated otaku market. The strength of Spice and Wolf is, as I am no doubt the millionth person to observe, all in its two leads and their chemistry. Lawrence isn't just an everyman, and Holo isn't just a catty tsundere, marketing aside, and neither of them are mouthpieces for spouting economic theory, even when they are. The beauty of Spice and Wolf is that none of Holo and Lawrence's interactions are just about money, or deals, or trades, or commerce. Initially, a lot of their conversations are about trust, a valuable asset for a merchant, yes, but also for personal relationships, which these two form out of necessity, traveling together. Then talks turn to desire, trickery, greed, consideration, sacrifice, the need for the two of them to assist one another and earn their keep, that slowly becomes a desire to care for and impress the other because, well, they're falling in love, all under the guise of being just business partners, and all traded off with witticism and charm. Just as the best sports or game-based anime aren't actually about the sport or game itself, Spice and Wolf isn't truly about economics. It uses economics to illustrate the dynamics of a relationship between two interesting and likable characters. And in the process, never comes off as forced or mushy. It's not a Romeo and Juliet-esque romance story where two people come together just because they sort of do. And, you know, the rest of the story would be about them professing their love, or worse, and more common in anime, be a rom-com where two people like each other because they just sort of do, and then spend the whole show getting frustrated and cock-blocked over it while doing nothing else of interest. No, no, no. Lawrence and Holo are drawn together by mutual interests, realistic chemistry, and rather than mooning over one another, they spend their lives doing things together, which I think nerds looking for love or having already found it can relate to very strongly. This idea of not just being in love by staring into one another's eyes and saying I love you a whole bunch, but having adventures. The duo Spice and Wolf get rich and go bankrupt, scam the authoritarian church and then get scammed by them, enjoy a late night of partying just before having their lives threatened by bandits or, yes, even wolves. And all of it speaks to their growing relationship, their desires and fears, where they come together, and where they drive one another away. This is a show that treats its viewers like adults, and even though it still boggles my mind that it took off the way it did, the fact that often considered juvenile otaku audiences resonated with this subtle, slow-moving, patience-demanding, and very well-written show instills some faith in me, not just for anime being produced in the future, but for an audience that desires finer spices like this gem as well. Spice and Wolf is a small, simple adventure, but the strength of its character writing and how well it was received, I hope puts some big teeth on the future of quality anime that can captivate a full audience with little talks instead of big explosions. Even if all that talking is about the price of wheat and horseshoes.